Hi, I'm Jana Van Rooyen, and this is the Harvard House Money Morsel. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell so that you can get a notification for when we release our awesome new videos. This episode is part 2 of our special two-part series on the property sector, and I have Daniel Reynard with me, our research analyst and property investment specialist. Welcome, Daniel.
Thanks for having me, Jana.
So last week, Takalani had a great high-level insight into the property investment sector, and he touched on retail properties, specifically our lower LSM properties and retail properties in South Africa, and also the offshore retail properties in areas such as Iberia and Central and Eastern Europe. Which shares do we specifically have that has exposure to these retail properties, and why those shares specifically?
So yes, Jana, the JSE listed property space has a lot of retail for us to choose from. In the interest of time, I think that I'll only go into 3. The first one being Nepi Rockcastle, which is a very well-known share for all of our Harvard House clients. We hold it widely across all clients. And so I think it's interesting because it's really high quality, modern malls that are owned across the Central and Eastern European region. And it's many people might wonder, why do you invest into Central and Eastern Europe instead of something that's perhaps a little more familiar like Western Europe? And so Central and Eastern Europe has showed very strong economic growth over the past few decades, outperforming a lot of its Western European peers. And yeah, there's a lot of demand from tenants to be in the malls that Nepi owns, and they've performed very well, and they aim to be dominant in the spaces. So they offer they offer clients lots of different options for them to go shopping at, such as food courts as well as fashion and beauty tenants for them. And so it's really underpinned the whole company, and the company's done well. And so last year it had 5.5% dividend growth, and this year we're expecting another 3%, although we think that it might be a little on the conservative side. And these numbers are based in euros. And so then the next company to talk about is Fairvest, which is also another widely owned company that we have, another widely owned listed company that we have. And this one gives us lots of exposure to the lower LSM segment of the market. And the tenants that Fairvest have in their properties trade really well, and the rentals that Fairvest can charge them are quite affordable. And so it allows them to continuously increase rentals year after year and grow the dividend ultimately that we get to hand on to our clients. And so for this year coming, for the full year that ends in September, we are expecting 11 to 13% dividend growth after achieving 12.8% in the interim period. So it's doing really well from that side. There are a few other companies, listed companies, that are in the same space as well. But just to mention Fairvest, since it's the most widely held. And then the final one being Vikili, which I wrote about recently in Intuition. It was aptly called adding pizza to Prego, Paella, and Pup. And so that reflects the fact that they've built a very successful portfolio in Spain and Portugal, and now they're expanding into Italy, replicating a lot of what made them initially successful in Spain and Portugal. And so we can also expect strong dividend growth from that side of roughly, I think management guide between 10 and 12% for the year ended March 2027. So lots of exciting stuff happening across the retail sector in the property space.
Oh, that's wonderful, Daniel. Yeah. So one other thing that he mentioned was our office properties. The performance has normalized since the COVID pandemics work from home trend. Is there anything else that you might tell the viewers about the performance in the office space?
Yes, so Office has actually come back into its own at the moment. It's not, the performance isn't equally spread throughout all property funds. I think that, well, a lot of what we see is that Gauteng still suffers from an oversupply in office space because over the past 10 years, let's say, white collar work hasn't grown as quickly as the supply of office space in Gauteng. So you've seen the very premium and A grade buildings have decent occupancy space as everybody returns back to the office, or and you've seen a lot of the lower quality buildings just not not having, well, haven't had their vacancies decrease as positively. And so, as I said, it's not an equal kind of performance across the whole country. So Spear, in fact, has spent R1 billion now purchasing 3 office spaces in the Tiger Valley region in Cape Town. And so they believe that those offices are going to perform exceptionally well. And so just with the lower vacancies that you see in the Western Cape, specifically Cape Town, it makes a lot of business sense. And so, yeah, there are other listed property companies that own office space, such as Growthpoint and Redefine, who are the two biggest office owners by the value of their portfolios. And we've seen Growthpoint specifically do a lot of work in that space, and they've managed to sell off a lot of the underperforming offices and decrease vacancies closer to the 10%, which means that the offices are still about 90% full, which is very positive. And they've collected more expenses back from their tenants. So it's actually been one of their best performing segments across the whole portfolio as local office. And so, yeah, interesting stuff in the space.
And the last thing that we touched on was the industrial property sector, which includes your traditional manufacturing facilities and also your modern warehouses, your large modern warehouses. What shares do we have that might give our clients exposure to that sector?
So we don't own too many specific industrial focused listed property companies. The one that is the most widely held would have to be Sirius, which is based in the UK, but it owns a lot of light industrial space in Germany as well as the UK. They're a very interesting company in the way that they manage a lot of very small tenants on flexible lease terms. And it's actually been it's been a well-working formula for them. They've seen rental growth increase steadily at about 5% or greater since probably for the past 10 years. And so it's just a trend that continues to do well. And so that is probably the most specific and widely held industrial listed property company that we own. However, you also see other companies such as Spear, Growthpoint and Redefine own, call it 30% of their portfolio is in industrial. So lots of clients and the rest of the property industry get are interested in owning a portion of modern logistics spaces, the fancy warehouses that you see as you drive along the highway down to Durban or through Johannesburg. And so those have been well performing. However, yeah, we believe that it'll continue to perform well, but there may be a story of building too much supply in that space. And so it's an interesting trend to follow.
Wow, Daniel, that's really good insight into the property investment sector. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for joining us as well. Remember to like and subscribe. Until next time.